I learn way more from my mistakes than I ever do from success. Because when I'm successful, I will always attribute that to luck or chance or, you know, some external thing. And I rarely attribute it to like me making the right decision. But when I screw up, I learn so much. Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Till the Wheels Fall Off. I am Matt.
I'm Paige.
The death of common sense. I feel like we can basically shovel dirt on the grave of common sense. I feel like it is dead and gone. We are in a world now that thrives on anything but common sense, it feels like. This is going to be an episode. If there's one that's going to get us canceled, this is probably the one.
Yeah, this is going to be a very opinionated episode. Just stay or go. I don't know.
Should I stay or should I go?
This is as pure as we'll get, is just being ourselves.
You're going to see some authenticity here.
Yeah, you know what? We said what we said. I'm not apologizing for it. I think this is an episode. This is the kind of conversations we wanted to have whenever we started the show.
Yeah.
And we've got an audience for it now, and I think that you guys can benefit from it too. Stick around. This one's going to be really, really fun.
And
it might piss you off too.
Yeah, that's okay. But if you're watching us on YouTube, we're very Adam Sandler dressed today because this is how we are.
The price is wrong, bitch.
This is how we dress at home on spring break. Nothing else going on. Got my hot
This is how we
mulligan
roll.
tee
We're
on.
comfy.
You're wearing a Dare shirt.
I am wearing a Dare
which is
shirt.
fitting.
Uh-huh.
Kids may not know about this if you're younger.
From the 90s.
You're a 90s kid. You know exactly what that shirt is. All right. We'll get it started. Hey, we've got a website, twfo.com. That's twfo.com, where you can find out everything that you would ever want to know about us. We've got a newsletter up there, which I forgot to send out this morning. Sorry for the late newsletter. You can sign up by going and putting your email address in about 3/4 of the way down the page, or if you've missed one, you can check out the blog section. I've posted most of the old ones as blogs. I still need to get caught up on that. We would also appreciate if you would review the show. Tell your friends. Let others know that it exists. Best way to do that is by subscribing, following the show, and leaving a review. It shoots us up the suggested podcast charts, if you will, for people who are looking for something like this. And it helps us a lot. So if you get something from the show, one great way you could give back is by simply just leaving us a review. We'd really, really appreciate it. We've got merch on our website. We've got Recovery Rocks. If you don't know what a Recovery Rock is, that's a Recovery Rock. It's got our logo on the front. On the back, it says, "Thank you for being my rock." This is a really cool way to acknowledge a spouse's journey or someone's journey, someone in your life that has been there for you through some stuff. That's a great way to acknowledge it. Yeah, that's a really great way to acknowledge their presence in your life and how much they've meant to you. Do you need my attention, or are you doing that on accident?
No, I'm having fun.
Okay.
Am I bothering you?
All right. So behind the scenes, anytime I'm getting onto a topic or saying something maybe a little too controversial or too
Or
personal,
like, why the hell did you say that? I'll kick him.
she kicks me under the table.
And right
so
now I'm kicking him.
She's kicking me.
But
So
I'm not
like,
kicking you where I usually kick you. Usually I kick you in the shin. Right now I'm just kind of pushing along your knee. I'm being affectionate. This is me being playful.
Just making sure. Just making sure. We've also got sweatshirts, hats, T-shirts,
Stickers.
tons of stickers on the website. You want to support the show, it's a great way to do it. You can also do that through Patreon. We've got a Patreon. Go to our link tree, and there's a Patreon page on there. You can subscribe just enough to buy us a cup of coffee every month. We really appreciate that. We've also got one where we're going to have listener Q&As. So it's like the premium tier, I think. And you can do a live Q&A with us once a month, which we will start very, very soon. There's a few people who have already joined on that. Thank you so much. We've also got a free Facebook community, completely free, 100% free. If you're a listener to the show, you want some community. We talked about the importance of community in a really recent episode.
Yes.
That's a great way to engage with other people who are going through what you're going through, who are trying to grow, who are trying to move past whatever it is that got them here. You can find that by going to our link tree on our website as well. We've also got a course called Independently Strong. Independently Strong was our best attempt at packaging our lives, our perspective, how we grew, how we changed, and how we moved past addiction and started challenging ourselves in growth in all sorts of other ways. We've said it before, but I think that addiction is just the frame, the lens from which we view growth, but that's not what the course is necessarily about. I think that a lot of our listeners find us because of addiction, but we hope that they stay because they're interested in all things growth. We want you to become better people. We want you to challenge yourself, develop personally. And that is what the course does. It is built alongside a licensed therapist, Dr. Christopher Taylor. So this is also research and evidence-based and informed. It's not just our opinions on things, unlike today's episode. It's robust. It's got 10 modules that will walk you through the journey that we walked through, the journey that, in our opinion, works best for getting people through to the other side of addiction. doesn't require that you stay or that you go or that you do necessarily anything other than grow yourself. And we believe that once you start doing that, the other pieces will fall into place. So if you feel lost, if you're not sure where to turn, the course is for you. You can get 75% off that course by entering in the code Wheelies75 at checkout. And you can access that by going to our website, tufo.com, or independentlystrong.com if you want to learn more. It's got a preview of the modules and an intro video and things like that, totally free, that you can look at if you want to decide if it's right for you or not. We've also got we've also got no, I can't find the word sponsor.
Yay!
We've got a sponsor for today's episode. Sorry, what happened to me there. Soberlink. Thank you to Soberlink. If you don't know what Soberlink is, it is the most high-tech breathalyzer that's ever been in existence. This thing is crazy. It's incredibly sleek. It is discreet, not like the kind you buy on Amazon for a few bucks. What makes Soberlink unique and what makes it different? Well, it's a few things. First of all, it's reporting ability. Soberlink allows you to set up contacts within your circle of trust, whoever that might be. It could be a therapist. It could be your spouse. It could be a group of friends, or maybe an AA sponsor, someone like that. And it lets them know whenever you're sober. You blow into the saying, you schedule times to blow into the saying, and it lets them know whenever you're sober. If you're someone who's trying to reestablish trust in your relationship, this is a great way to do that. Voluntarily get one of these things to show people that you're serious this time.
Yeah.
They've heard it before. What would make it different? This would. A layer of accountability that you put into place, that you chose to put into place, that will set this time apart. What makes it different? It's a question I ask a lot of people. What makes this time different? Well, this is one way to do that. It can make things different. It also has people who are on standby 24/7 on Soberlink's team that review the data as it comes in. They know the difference between someone who's got cologne on and someone who's been drinking all day. So if a spouse sees something pop up and on a normal cheap breathalyzer, hey, you've been drinking. No, I really haven't. Soberlink is going to allow you to prove yourself. But if you're lying, they're going to be able to prove that as well. They're not in the business of getting people into trouble. They're getting the business of providing the best possible data. They do a fantastic job of that. They have military-grade facial recognition technology as well, so that you know the person using the device is the person who's supposed to be using the device. No tricks. It's got tamper-proof technology as well. If you try to mess with it, that gets reported too. People will get alerted, and they know that you're up to no good. Okay, it's a fantastic tool. Soberlink gets to be the middleman, right? You don't have to have arguments with your spouse anymore.
You don't have to be the police.
You don't got to be the police. Soberlink, let them have that job. You don't want that job anyway. Let them do it. Let them do it. Another great use of Soberlink is if you are in a custody battle or agreement. If you're separated and you want to make sure that your children are going somewhere where you know that they're around a sober adult, Soberlink is the way. It is trusted by over 200,000 people. It is court admissible in all 50 states, and it is considered the gold standard in court. It is essential, I think, if you are in a situation where you're separated and your children are going to be sent somewhere. Don't do it without Soberlink. Soberlink has been generous enough to give our listeners $50 off a device, and all you have to do is go to soberlink.com/wheels and enter in your email address. Again, it's soberlink.com/wheels. And they will send you a coupon for $50 off a device. It's an amazing tool. We believe in it. You are in either the situations we just discussed, get you one. Tell them we sent you. All right, let's get started on today's discussion. What?
I'm excited to hear you talk on this episode.
I'm excited to hear you talk, 'cause I don't want to do this whole time.
Bullshit. You want to talk today. Like, you were so enthusiastic during that sponsor talk. It wasn't a read because you don't read from anything. You just kind of do your thing. And you were enthusiastic before this episode. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, in our show meeting before the show, as we're going through our notes and everything else, discussing the topic.
Cute.
We got
called
heated
it a
in
show
here.
meeting.
That's what it is.
I know, but that's cute. It's just weird.
It sounds official that way, doesn't it?
It's really just like conversations that we have behind closed doors all the time anyway. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, we just put more of a formal outline to it all, and then we come
And then
record
we
it.
come in and we talk.
And then we hope that it helps you guys. We hope that at the very least it's entertaining, which I think today's will be.
Yeah. Again, these are our opinions. Take them or leave them, whatever you want.
All right, so common sense is dead. That's the thesis here, but it doesn't have to be, and we can get it back. We know more than we've ever known. We have more access to information at our fingertips than we've ever had in the history of humanity. And that's an amazing thing. You can find out truths about a million things. You can find out phone numbers. You can find definitions. You can find out about new ideas or book recommend, you name it. The internet is an amazing thing. I am pro internet. But what it has also done is taken away our ability to
make decisions,
use common sense and make decisions. It's completely removed that from a lot of people. We've gotten incredibly lazy because there's too much information out there and it confuses the shit out of us and we're not sure exactly what to do anymore. So we oftentimes just stay stagnant, unsure of what to do. We've lost our ability to be adults. Like, where are all the adults? I always thought that when I grew up, I'd be surrounded by other adults. And then now that I am officially an adult, I've come to realize that there are no more adults now than there were when I was like 17 or 18. I always thought that there would just be adults, but I think it's just, for the most part, as I've come to know people, I always felt like I was the idiot in the room that needed guidance. And I think that we have a massive problem if people are looking to me for guidance.
You're the most adult in the room.
We have a problem if that's the case. And this is why I think that could be.
That is scary.
Yeah. So
I'm just kidding. It's really not scary. I think it's great.
I think that people complicate the hell out of stuff.
Yeah, I think
really
they do too.
I think
I do
that
too.
we've gotten in this habit of complicating what used to be pretty simple topics, and we've made them so muddy that no one knows how to act or what to do. You're not sure which research path to go down to find the answer that you're looking for, or how to approach anything. Like, addiction is what we discuss here a lot, and there are a lot of ideas about how, like, what does addiction stem from? Where does it come from? Is it trauma? Is it just
we don't go into that topic
or
for a
pattern
reason.
of behaviors? Is it right? Multitude of things. There's the disease model of addiction. There's the, like the condition to learn model. There's this kind of hybrid of the two that like Mark Lewis presented. And it's complicated. And then when you get into relationships, it gets just as complicated. And there are things like attachment theory and attachment styles, which we've got opinions about. You're going to get some of those today. I think a lot of it's bullshit. I think that it serves a purpose, but I think that there's a lot of bullshit behind attachment theory. We'll get into why we think that today. But I think that what we've done is we've over-pathologized essentially every normal human emotion that we've ever had in our entire life in the history of humanity. And now everything's got a label. And with that label also comes an identity behind it. And then there are these subgroups online, whether it be like Reddit forums, or it can be like there are these hashtag TikTok things, right? There's like NARC talk, there's like trauma talk, there's therapy talk, and there's these online communities that people live in, which a lot of times can give people meaning and purpose, and it helps them identify what's going on. But for a lot of other people, they stay in it way too long, and they end up confusing what is a rather simple topic. Yeah. And it becomes their identity, and they stay stuck because of it.
Right.
They stay stuck. Addiction is kind of one of these. We rely on labels so much, and we get analysis by paralysis. We try to find as much information as we possibly can about a topic before we make a decision. And we're going to talk about why today, that in my experience, that was not the best course of action. That wasn't the best approach. No. In fact, I did the opposite of that. Started forward with the work, and then I figured out the why after the fact. And I think that I saved myself a ton of trouble doing that. I just had an aha moment. What was your aha moment?
I did the same.
You did. We both did.
I did the same.
Yes. Yes.
Did you know that?
Yes.
Oh, shit. That's awesome.
Okay, so today we're going to cut through the noise and talk about what common sense actually looks like in various areas of your life. The first one I want to get into is pop psychology. You all know the pop psychology talk. Attachment theory is the one I'm going to take aim at first. So if you don't... Wait, what? That was next? All right, what are we doing first, Paige?
The pop psychology. So like on social media or whenever you are labeling everything, which is something that you already discussed. But let's think about a time before we had social media and before we had this self-diagnosis culture, because we have a culture now where you go online, you watch a TikTok video, you watch maybe hours of TikTok videos, and you're like automatically like, oh my gosh, I'm ADHD, or I'm autistic, or I have anxious attachment style. We'll talk about that as well too, or whatever. Avoidant, whatever it is. And think about a time before we had social media when people had to use their common sense to actually guide them to make decisions. Nowadays, I feel like we have this culture where you just over pathologize or you over label everything. And like you said, you just get stuck in it, and then you don't make decisions and you don't change, or everything has to have a reason behind it on how you do things, because the internet tells you that that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, the internet can be a wonderful thing, but it can also be the most dangerous thing in your life. And if you spend too much time on it, especially if you suscept your mental health and wellness to it and let that algorithm decide for you what's going on with you, man, that can be a bad thing.
I'm not big on labeling. I don't like labeling. And I've said that before. Like, I remember like the codependent thing, and then people will go down this whole codependency thing. And I'm like, I never really, like, I related to it, but not in depth to it. You know, it wasn't like my identity. And I feel like people label themselves as something specific, and then that just becomes their entire identity and why they do the things that they do in life, when life is, it's actually simpler than that in a way. We make it too complex. We make it too complicated whenever we just need to go back to the basics of our common sense and trusting our instincts.
Yeah, codependency is one that breaks my heart, frankly.
Yeah, me too.
I like, as much as we talk about the need and at times to separate from situations that are damaging and destructive to you and your children, marriage has served us very well. Marriage has served both of us very well. I think that people, I'm not just going to say men and women, because plenty of same-sex couples have the same experience, where you find someone who has traits that are different than yours and you work harmoniously together to solve problems. And it's incredible. And I am dependent on you and you are dependent on me. And there's nothing fucking wrong with that.
Right.
And
right. That's what love is. That's what makes us have a relationship.
What are we doing? If that's
Right.
not, why do we get in relationships?
Right.
You know, like, you fall in love because someone has features and attributes that you may not have, that you'd like to develop. And that's what makes them attractive in the first place. And then you want to get to know them better and learn more about them, and, you know, have them in your circle as you fight through life. And they do the same for you. And that's the beauty of love. That's what love is. I think that codependency, if you take it too far, you can risk running into a situation where you think that, like, don't get me wrong, you can do things on your own. Like, I don't want anyone to feel like they need to have someone in order to be happy, because that's not always the case.
Right.
But I don't see why, if you were in a relationship with someone and it didn't work out, that you would just decide at that point that the relationships are just not for me and just give up completely, because you've identified so much with, I don't want to be a codependent. I don't want to be dependent on anyone else. And I could see why you would feel that way if you've been hurt and you've been that vulnerable and then rejected and turned away, or you'd have addiction or something like that wreck your life. I understand why you would want to do that. But I think if it does anything at all, it just sets up your next relationship to know what you will and will not tolerate, who you are, who you're not, what you look for in a partner. And it just makes the next one that much clearer. I don't think it just means like, can't win, don't try, give up. Like, all men suck and all women suck, and what's the point of any of this at all?
Well, that's just all or nothing thinking in black and white. That's going too rigid. You know, there's a gray area with all of that, with relationships and stuff.
Yeah, I think ADHD is one I see come up a lot, and at risk of getting completely canceled and ostracized by half of our audience here, I'm just going to come out and say it. So I am the poster child for ADHD. Spend one afternoon with me and you would know exactly what I mean.
You were diagnosed when we were in high school?
Yeah.
Was it high school?
No, it was
or
right
was
after high
it
school.
after high school?
Right after high
It was
school.
like when you were 18.
Yeah, right after high school.
Yeah.
And I'd known that I had this thing. I think that it's a legitimate neuro disorder. It is real. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not real. I will sit here and say that it shouldn't be your whole fucking identity. It shouldn't be your entire identity. I see people answer questions online or respond to statements as someone with ADHD, as a neurodivergent, as someone who's neurospicy, whatever it might be. So many people struggle with the symptoms of ADHD or have some form of ADHD. And it's more acknowledged now than it ever has been. And I think that that's good, but I don't think that you stop there with it. I have learned in my own life that medication, for me personally, was not the answer. First of all, because I have addictive tendencies, and
the medication that they gave you,
the absolute shit out of it.
Yeah.
For some people, they can take the medication and they do really well. For other people, they'll find that they take the medication and it works well for a time, and then, like a substance like dextroamphetamine will do, it starts to become less effective as you develop a tolerance, and then you're sort of like chasing this productivity through this pill. And the danger that you run into is that you're never really developing skills in order to deal with the thing that ails you, right? Life. I think that I applied a lot of common sense to my ADHD, and I had to put some processes in my life to deal with ADHD. And I think that many people can. I'm not sitting here saying that you quit your medication. I'm not a doctor. This is my opinion. This is what I did.
Right.
I have to work a whole lot harder than most people in order to get the same result, I think. And that's okay. That's who I am. That is what I am. Like, when I read, I don't actually get a groove in reading until I've read for about 40 minutes.
Okay, but that's common. I don't understand why that's an ordeal. Like, why is that an issue? That's where I'm trying to think of, like, I feel like we all have these quirks, but it's really just human. Like, I feel like that's just something that we have.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. And I've always felt like when the doctors would tell me like, that's not normal, I thought, is it really not? Like, are there some people who can sit down and like task oriented and just start and finish a task without getting distracted? And I'm like, and if someone is struggling with it, do we really need to go as far as just writing a medication for it right away?
Well, they're a business.
Yeah, I don't trust
Let's be real with that. You
anyone
know, like
that sells a product like that.
yeah, it's
anyway.
something that it's just like addiction, just like depression, just like anxiety and the things that we do. We learn skills to get through it and recognize it. Sometimes it just is, and you figure out what you can do better. Like kind of like little boys, I think that a lot of them have ADHD, right? Like it's or little kids.
Yeah.
But it's like if you would allow them to go and be really active or release that energy or whatnot, maybe, just maybe, it would be easier for them to cope with it.
So our son, I know for a fact that he has it.
Yes, I have not gotten it diagnosed though.
He would like, if he was allowed to, he would sit on top of his desk and like just bounce like this the whole time. Like
Yeah.
he cannot
But he
sit
has
still.
control.
He has trouble focusing. He has trouble. But if you let him play until he is exhausted,
Yeah.
he's excellent.
Right.
Right. And I think that so much of school is designed to teach us how to go to work and sit in behind a cubicle.
Right.
And it's not healthy for us. We can have a whole other conversation about
Yeah,
that.
that's a
but
whole totally different conversation.
I think that ADHD is one of the most conquerable of all of these. If you like, I know that whenever I don't exercise, I am the worst.
Yeah.
I'm the worst. I'm irritable. I cannot finish anything, and then I beat myself up for not being able to finish anything. And I reach for stimulants like coffee or energy drinks or
Yeah.
something like that to help me with it.
But that's normal human behavior when you sit around too much. When
That's
you
the thing
do
is that
not become active.
common sense tells me that it's not my ADHD. It's just common sense that like I'm a human. We were designed to move.
We were
And
designed to move. Yeah.
I'm not moving. I need to move. I need to make sure I do that. And if I do that, then I'm good. And again, if you are someone who's been helped by ADHD medication, I'm not criticizing you. Do what works for you. This is about people who take something like a disorder, ADHD, and they make it their entire identity, and everything that they do revolves around it.
Yes.
This is just one of the many things that we're going to discuss, right? The next one is going to be attachment styles. Attachment styles, we hinted at the last time we had recorded that there was some, I've read a lot about attachment styles. I've read the original studies.
You started reading about attachment
attachment
styles
theory.
about 2 years ago, I think.
Bowlby and Ainsworth and their studies on attachment theory. And if you don't know about attachment theory and like how the theory came to be, is they wanted to study how attachment to parents for different children, how they responded. So they would have a caregiver in the room with a child. The caregiver would leave, and they found that some children reacted completely normal. They seemed okay. There were some children that acted as if when the parent returned, they acted as if it didn't bother them, even though that they knew that it bothered them. They had them hooked up to things. They could tell by their heart rate that they were really, really upset. And these were what they called avoidant types. And then there were kids that just lost their minds when their parent left the room. They called these anxious types. And it helped us identify how attachment in early childhood affects us later in life. And social media discovered this, I don't know when, it seems like in the past year or two, and has taken it to the umpteenth degree, where people, their entire identity is about their attachment style.
Right.
And it was never intended to dictate who you're supposed to be with necessarily. It was about understanding how your early childhood relationships influence your life and how you present in relationships. It's not an excuse to stay with someone who treats you like shit. I want to say that.
Yeah.
For so many people, and what we deal with here, which is abusive situations, oftentimes they will research attachment theory. That's the first place they go. And they label themselves anxiously attached. They'll say, I'm anxiously attached, and that's why I can't deal with him disappearing for days on end, or when he doesn't show me affection, or whenever he drinks instead of spends time with me and the children, or whenever he talks to me the way he talks to me.
When he lies
we
to
just
me.
have an anxious avoidant dynamic and the anxious avoidant cycle, and that's
I need
what
to
it
work
is.
on
Right.
my anxious and anxiety.
Right. And I think that
Attachment.
I think if it does the danger in this is that it encourages someone to fix other people rather than using common sense. And this is the worst thing I could possibly say about it, but it is just the God honest truth is that it's easier to look at yourself and say, I'm anxiously attached, or they are avoidant, and we need to heal those wounds before we can move forward, than it is to say,
We're not right for each other.
we're not supposed to be together.
Or,
This is like,
or they're an asshole.
this person's a jerk. Like I've literally seen people say he cheated on me and I just cannot get over it. And I know it's my anxious attachment that causes me to feel this way. And I'm like, use your common sense. Anyone who's been cheated on is going to be hurt.
Yeah.
But I think what it does is it sort of gives people a semblance of control. Like, if I can heal this, then I'll just be okay. Instead of, the truth is, the last 4 years of your life have been a waste. And that's just the truth. And I don't know another way to present it, but it's just the truth.
I wouldn't say it's a waste, because I think you've learned something through it.
But the relationship itself,
I know what you mean now.
You didn't get marriage,
right.
children, happily ever after out of it. And so it's just over. It's just over. It wasn't meant to be for whatever reason.
Not working out.
This person wasn't ready. They weren't mature enough, whatever it might be. But instead, you will spend hours and hours and hours on TikTok or online in these forums and these Facebook communities. I joined a couple of these things to kind of see what was going on. Yeah, I joined an avoidant attachment and an anxious attachment. And all it is, 90% of them, let's say 9 out of 10 are people who are in awful relationships, who are looking for answers within to fix something that they have no control over.
Oh.
And they will sit in these situations for years and years and years and years, getting no better as they're trying to heal something inside that is not going to fix the problem outside within someone else. So I think that people can use it as a form of trying to fix other people. And it also has become a way to pathologize normal, everyday relationship struggles. Like, if people have poor communication, which happens in all relationships, we communicate poorly at times. Instead of just saying we have mismatched values, or we don't communicate well enough, or we're not mature enough, or someone's disrespecting me, they hyper focus on attachment styles rather than just looking at the basics, the common sense.
Common sense.
If someone's emotionally unavailable, it's not always about their childhood wounds. It's just not. Sometimes they just don't want to be with you in the way that you want to be with them. And I don't know another simpler way to put that.
Right.
You're at different places in your life. You want different things, and you can sit there and go down the attachment style thing all day long. And I know that there are plenty of experts who will argue with me on this. I don't care. This is my opinion about it, because I've seen it enough times to know that there are people out there who are searching for answers where they don't exist.
Yeah. I mean, common sense says to look at the actions and not the labels.
Yeah.
And it's that simple. It can be that simple. It's just like when we talk about behaviors over substance.
Yeah.
You know, we overcomplicate it. Like, it's a substance, it's a substance. Like, no, it's a behavior. If somebody's treating you like shit, it doesn't matter if they're an addict, if they have trauma, if they have these attachment issues, if they have all these things. What matters is the way that they treat you. That's it. How are they treating you? And what can you do about it?
Yeah,
it's not the label. The label needs to go.
There are some rather complex situations in life that require further investigation. That's not all situations. That's not all of them. There are sometimes your common sense prevails. If you've never seen the midwit meme, which we ought to do an episode on sometime, just Google midwit meme. On the left side, it's a bell curve. On the
Kind
left,
of what this is about.
on the left side, there's someone with no knowledge about a subject
Very
that has common
unintelligent.
sense.
Yeah.
And in the middle, the biggest group of people on the bell curve is someone who's done way too much research and over-pathologized something, has tried to over-explain something. And then what we ultimately arrive at is on the far right side of the bell curve, the same place you started, which is that common sense has prevailed. And so I think about like addiction. Like for me, like I always knew that like drugs and alcohol were bad and I shouldn't use them and they're addictive and whatnot. And then oftentimes where people, especially spouses, will go is to that middle area where they will spend years researching attachment wounds and like childhood trauma and like all kinds of different trauma and like the brain activity that's taking place. And then at the end on the right side, what you ultimately arrive to is that like drugs are bad and addictive and like they will affect you. Like weight loss is like this, like, you know, eat high protein, low calorie foods, exercise more calories than you take, you know, eat
healthy foods, eat healthy.
Expend more calories than you take in and you'll lose weight. People in the middle want to have a million different complicated ways to do it. And on the right side, people who've actually done this and become wise about it also know the same thing the guy who's completely naive about it knows, which is it's rather simple. It's rather simple. That's what I'm getting at. It's like this stuff is rather simple and we can complicate the shit out of it if we want to. Attachment styles is the one that really gets under my skin because I see people in actual situations they shouldn't be in, trying to control it by pathologizing themselves, by saying, I have this thing and that's why my life's not working out. If I could just fix me, then I could fix them, which is false. That is absolutely false. It's just incorrect. Trauma responses, it's kind of another one. I think that we have essentially labeled every human experience that people have ever had since the beginning of time trauma in one way or another. You could look it up and I guarantee you there's a page about it out there, some creator who makes content about it. If you're someone who gets nervous around a lot of people in a bunch of big groups, like maybe you don't have anxiety disorder. Maybe you're just like every other person who gets anxious around other people. Like that is a normal thing. It's not traumatic that you're going through this. I think one of the worst things you could do is tell someone that they have like anxiety disorder at like 12 years old because they're a little nervous of being around people.
Yeah. And it's like, that's just normal. We all have these feelings, you know, we just have to learn how to deal with it and cope with it.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. Like I know there are a lot of black or white thinkers who are going to hear this and be like, well, I actually do have that thing. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the other people, the thousands of other people who aren't in that boat, who want to give label or reason to everything that goes on in their life because it helps them feel like they're in control of their life. Mm-hmm. And the more answers that you seek, actually, the more lost you are. The more lost you are. And oftentimes, it robs you of your instincts. The more you complicate a topic, robs you of your instincts, and it takes away your ability.
That's my experience.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a researcher. I'm not a big researcher type person to where I feel as though if I look too much into something, first of all, I don't have the like mental capacity for it, to be honest. Like I've got so much going on within my life that's not something that I can sit down and do. But what happens is that I fear that it would make me stop trusting my instincts and stop trusting my common sense, because I would be consumed with so much information where I'm like, I'm so confused now, because now it's telling me something different than what my instincts are telling me. And I've done this with parenting. I've done this as being married to you. I've done this as being a podcaster and being a content creator. Like I don't go into major research stuff. Like I didn't research too much on attachment styles. Like I looked into it, of course, but I wasn't like digging deep into it because I felt like it was going to make me go against my instincts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's certain things that even if you showed me a scientific study on it, I wouldn't care. Like I know some things just common sense prevails, and like you can say what you want and be very curious how you conducted that study. I'm just not going to accept that.
Well, here's the thing: is that studies change throughout our lifetime. Something that is happening right now may not happen in a couple of years, or even things that
that's
people.
That's the beauty of science,
like,
is that it's what we know now to be the best.
Right, which is amazing, and it's great. And I do love to learn new things. I don't want people to think that I'm like just this person who just speaks my opinion all the time. Like I know things. I promise. I look into things, but there are certain things where I'm just like, this is over analyzing something that I don't feel is absolutely necessary for the space that we're in. I feel like what's most necessary is learning how to trust your gut again and your instincts and having common sense, because you know deep down, everyone knows what you need to do, what should be done, and what you feel. It's just you don't want to accept it, and that's the place that's kind of scary.
Yeah, like if someone treats you poorly and they're abusive, does their attachment style even matter?
Right.
Does it actually matter?
No, it doesn't. No. And it's just like I said, when people say they've asked us, I've been cheated on and my partner, was it the substance? Was it the addiction? Was it, the atom? It's like, does it matter? Does it matter? No, it's the fact that you were treated a certain way that goes against your values. What do your instincts say? It's just like we say, what would you tell your best friend if they came to you with this? Yeah. That's the common sense. Utilize that for yourself. It's hard.
I think that questions like that can make it easy. If you're like, listen, we're going to figure this out. It will make it easier for me to forgive if I know that you weren't trying to hurt me. And that's each person's personal. That's your decision. If you want to work through it, I think that you're going to have to find some way to make sense of it and depersonalize it.
Cool. Good for you. That's not my experience.
Intent does not erase impact.
No, it doesn't.
And that is what I've tried to hammer home to people forever, is that it's still going to affect you. And just because they didn't necessarily mean to do it doesn't mean that you're not going to feel a certain way the next time that you're watching a movie and there's an infidelity scene. It's not going to mean that you're not going to feel a certain way the next time that you find a DM between them and someone they work with, some woman or something like that. Like it will affect you regardless of the intent, because the impact is still there. It is still there. So you can spend all day researching all this stuff all you want. What does common sense tell you? What does it tell you?
Can we go back to research for just a moment? I kind of want to tie in how you got sober. When you got sober, you didn't go into your trauma, right?
No.
Like it was like I don't care why I'm doing what I need to do. I don't care why I'm an addict. I don't care why I have this problem. I just want to know how to move forward. I just want to know how to do what I need to do to move forward. Right. that kind of goes along with your common sense.
It does. I think that goes along. I think that was what my common sense, my instincts were telling me. I was in a treatment center with a trauma-informed therapist who was telling me, and I believed her, that some things that have happened in your past, at some point in your past, have set all of this into motion. And I said, I know, you're probably correct, but I don't really give a shit about that right now. What I care about right now is, how do I fix this? How do I fix this? And I promise you, I will learn about those things in time. I will figure all that stuff out in time. But right now, today, I need to know what I need to do in order to fix this. And she was kind of like taken aback by it. Like, I don't know if that's the best idea. I'm not sure if that's the best path forward. And you said the same thing.
I did.
I was like, you used to wear me out about it. Like, you need to know the why. You need to know the why. And what you were saying is, it's important that you know so that you don't repeat it. It's important.
We don't pass it on
if
to
you
our
are going
children.
to be in long-term recovery, that you understand the why. But day one, you don't need to understand why. And that's my hot take, is you don't need to understand why today.
Nope.
And if you're a loved one of someone, you don't need to understand the why any more than they do necessarily right now today. What good does it do to research the why and spend a year or 2, 3 years in therapy understanding the why if you're still getting high and using alcohol to excess the entire time? What good is that? What good does that do? Start to do the work now to change the behaviors that lead to a life of sobriety, in which then you can uncover the why of it all. Deal with it with a sound and sober mind. Deal with it, okay? These things can kind of exist together.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will think of it like these are two separate things. Before you work on it, you got to understand why. And you can't work on it before you understand why. And that's total crock of shit.
It is bullshit, because that was your experience and that was my experience with my personal thing too. But you didn't go down into your trauma until fucking a decade later, after sobriety, pretty much.
And I was
and you were
fine.
doing fine.
Doing
You were
great.
doing fine. I mean, of course you did have some behaviors, whatever. We've dealt
Old
with
habits
that.
die hard, man.
Yeah. But like for me, whenever I went through my mental crisis where I was having panic attacks, anxiety, depression, I didn't give a fuck as to why these things were happening. I didn't care. I was like, I just want to get fixed. What do I need to do to change this? And that's the road that I went down. It wasn't like looking at all of my past issues or my childhood issues or things within you. It was obviously getting help with a therapist, but it was more, it was more of a like validating experience. It was just more talking about things. And then changing my lifestyle. It was about changing my lifestyle. And then I didn't dig into the other stuff until way later on. So I did the same thing. You don't have to do that in order to change.
A slow learner. In my entire life, I've been a slow learner.
I don't think you're a slow learner.
And I remember with mathematics specifically, we would be doing something in class and it would be so far over my head, but I would just stick with it. And like, I don't even know what that answer means. I don't know all that crap that we just did to get that answer. I don't even know what all that was, but I stuck with it. And like 2-3 weeks later, I would have this aha moment when we progressed and we built off the concepts that I would then understand the very first thing that we did. I'm like, oh, that's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
I didn't sit there forever to understand the why, because it wouldn't have made sense to me anyway.
No,
I would have sat there with it.
You did the work.
I just did the work, and then it made sense.
It's acting.
I think that you can talk to anyone who's been successful in any endeavor in their entire life, especially in professional capacity, about how did you get to where you are today. They will tell you all the same thing. I started. At some point, you just have to start. You can't be too like there's no such thing as doing enough preparation where you're going to be feeling ready enough to take a risk like that, like starting something new. You just start and you will figure this stuff out as you go. Just start. If you wait until the day you feel ready to start, you will never get ready. I just don't think it's important. Knowing why is important, but I think the how is more important. How are we going to fix this? Regardless of the why, how do I get there? How do I go about this? What work do I need to do in order to get there, as opposed to asking the eternal question of why? Well, why? And then it keeps going. And then, well, it's my mother and it's my father. And it's, the fact that I wasn't held enough as a child, or I wasn't breastfed, or how is this helping me stay sober today? How is this helping me get better today? How is this helping me deal with my anxiety today?
Yeah.
How is it helping you to know your father wasn't around enough, or whatever it might be?
Mm-hmm.
Helps you maybe put the pieces together, but is that helping you with coping skills to deal with anxiety in a crowded room today?
Right.
I would argue it doesn't.
No, it's not. You need the tools in order to cope and manage those emotions and what you're dealing with instead of the why.
So with regard to addiction, spouses are probably the worst about this, where they will spend longer than anyone researching the why of addiction. I have more people send me dirty, nasty, angry DMs. There are spouses and partners that tell me that I need to know more about trauma before I open my mouth about addiction. And I'm going to say every single time, no, I don't.
You're not going to shut your mouth.
I'm not going to be quiet about this. I know that addiction and trauma are correlated. I know all about it. I have read in depth about it. I know. What I'm saying is nothing can change until you put forth action. And just because you've read a bunch of books about addiction and you understand trauma doesn't excuse the fact that they are sleeping with other people and bringing home STDs to you or hitting you or stealing money from you. It doesn't excuse any of that crap. The intent does not matter. The impact is the same. That is what I've always said and will always maintain. That stuff doesn't matter as much for you or for them as it does for you, I guess, because for you, it feels like a way to control the narrative in your mind about why you decide to stay. And that's fine. Whatever you need to do to protect yourself is fine, but don't come at me. Don't come at me. Because another thing that happens a lot is people will come after me saying, I have no right to talk about X, Y, or Z, as if I haven't lived through it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
right.
Like, people have trauma. How dare you bully them saying that they can recover, acting like it's so easy? I never said it was easy. It's incredibly difficult. It's insanely difficult. I never said it was easy.
But it's not impossible.
But when you say that I haven't dealt with it, like that is the biggest slap in the face to me and every other person that has beat this thing. What you're saying is your loved one's pain must be bigger than my pain ever was if I got this result and they didn't. Or could it be I got off my ass and did the work and they didn't? Define the work any way you wish. If you want to go some cognitive route, if you want to go some spiritual route, if you want to go some medication assisted route, whatever it might be, all paths equal. I'm doing work that you're not doing. I don't care how much you understand about it, right? I'm not bullying anybody when I say that you need to get your shit together and recover in some way. I'm not. I'm simply not acknowledging the fact that you need to know everything about the why before you do the what. You just don't. So come at me, keep coming at me. I don't care. I'm not going to stop talking about it. It is what it is. Like I've lived through this. I've watched other people live through this as well. And I don't know anyone who spent 7 years in therapy understanding the why of their trauma and then just got sober all of a sudden. Not a single fucking person.
No.
Not one.
It's action.
It's oftentimes it's loved ones of people who are still out there, mothers of people who are still out there or have lost someone. And that's tragic. Okay. I'm not coming at anybody, but you're coming at someone who's on the other side of it. I'm not an expert by any means, but I do know a thing or two about it. I've lived it and I've read about it. Just reading about it in a book does not make you an expert about anything. Okay. You've read about theory. You've read about how this stuff works, but have you done it?
Have you lived it?
Have you
lived
done any of it?
experience is a little
No.
bit different than actually reading about it.
And if you look at the studies and the research on peer support and why peer support is so important in recovery, you know what peer support is? It's a fancy word for saying people who have lived it and never studied it.
Yeah. People who have lived it. It's lived experience.
I went to the NADAC conference this last October, I think, and they had talked about that in depth, about the importance of peer support, about how lived experience and people who have been there is just as helpful, if not more helpful, than experts who have written studies about it and, you know, researched the brain and everything else. At the end of the day, we need to know how we're going to fix this from someone who's been there before. Okay. So come at me all you want, but it's not going to change the way I talk about it or the way I view it or anything else. I know that trauma plays into addiction. I know that they're correlated.
But sometimes it doesn't.
No one wants to hear that, but it's the truth.
But it's true. You know people who just got fucked up to get fucked up. So, I mean...
Addiction can be, addiction absolutely is correlated with trauma. We know this. This is true. Talk to anyone who's been through it and they will give you some semblance of a story that is trauma. But what is trauma necessarily, right? Not everyone with trauma ends up being addicted. Okay, so, but they say that all addicted people have trauma, but I wouldn't say that's necessarily true. I know that there are also addicted people who just have really poor mechanisms to deal with stress or anxiety or fear or whatever it might be. They just don't have the coping skills. It's not necessarily trauma. We're just unfit to deal with life as it is today and just maladapted to it. And we need to learn new coping skills. And sometimes it's as simple as that, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes people are dickheads and they're just abusive by their very nature.
Yeah.
Because maybe trauma or whatever else, but like, you're not going to fix them by understanding it. You're not. If anything at all, you're going to suscept yourself to another decade of it as you come to terms with the fact that you understanding it doesn't change them.
Yep.
It takes a person who's dealt with the trauma to want to move past the trauma to get better. Is it easier with support? You're damn right it is, but it's not even necessary. It helps, but it's not even necessary. I think that you move past things when you get so incredibly sick of your own shit that you become willing and open to different perspectives about how to get there.
Yeah.
And stop thinking that you wrote the rule book or something, you know?
Yeah.
Just get open to different ideas and you'll find your way. But just learning about it doesn't necessarily help. Like I know I have a really good idea about why you're incredibly anxious. Did it ever help me telling you why?
No.
Did it ever once help you, me telling you why?
No.
And likewise, did it ever help me, you telling me why you think I use drugs and alcohol?
Oh, no, you didn't like it.
It never helped me, man.
No, it did not help at all.
It was a semblance of control for you to understand. And that's all it is. Because when we understand, we think we can control it. If I can just understand it, I can control it. I can fix it.
I've mentioned this many times on the podcast before that I understood why you were the way you were, but that didn't mean that I tolerated it. You know, like I can understand and I can have compassion and be like, okay, well, you know, you're a product of your environment, but that doesn't mean you're going to treat me like shit.
Right.
So, but a lot of people will take it to the extreme of like, oh, well, I know why you are the way you are, so I'm just going to coddle you. And I have a big problem with that. Because that's not common sense. Common sense is saying, I understand why you do what you do, but I'm not going to tolerate it. Like, I feel like that's just common sense.
It is. It's the essence of common sense.
But it's been lost.
There was an episode of Modern Wisdom that released, and I wish we could just delete everything we've talked about and post their episode because it was incredible. It's with Chris
I haven't
Williamson.
listened to it yet, but oh my gosh, you said it was amazing.
Chris Williamson and Freya India.
I love Freya.
An amazing writer. Check out her Substack. It's called Girls if you haven't already. She's incredible. Wise beyond her years. Incredibly thought-provoking. And she really hammers on common sense. And like we've gotten so far away from common sense. She talks about it in the frame of Gen Z women. But I think it's very applicable to our listeners as well. It's not just a generational thing. I think this is just kind of a thing that kind of pervades itself through every generation. And like one of them is therapy culture, and which is the next topic here, is therapy culture and the need to, I guess, outsource every single problem that you have. You know, we talk about this a lot behind the scenes. It's like, you don't need necessarily an answer for that. Like, you know what you need to do.
Yeah. Deep down, you know. Those are your instincts talking. That's the common sense talking. That's you telling you what you need to do. Like I've talked about going to therapy. Therapy is important, but I don't think it's important to have somebody guide you in your life and tell you exactly what to do.
I also don't think that lifelong therapy is the greatest idea ever.
No, I don't think so
think
either.
that
It comes with season. It's seasonal. You know, you kind of graduate out of it. You can go when you have problems. Like if you're grieving or if something happens within your life where you're like, you know what, I need a little bit of validation. I need somebody to talk to help me through this. That's awesome. But somebody actually telling you what to do is just having somebody else have control over your life.
Therapists don't do that anyway, generally.
No, generally they don't. But a lot of people feel like that's what they need. They feel like they want more structure. They want somebody to tell them, hey, how do I do this? How do I navigate this? How do I do? I mean, we get questions all the time on how do I do this? And I don't respond directly to that question because I don't feel like it's the best answer. I feel as though you need to make you can figure it out on your own. I'm here to validate you and I understand how you're feeling and why you're feeling that way, but you know the answer to these questions.
The only person qualified to answer that question is you.
Is you. Right.
That's it.
It's you. Because if you rely on somebody else to tell you how to do something and how to get through it and how to fix it and how to solve it, you're not building your self-esteem either because you're still allowing somebody else to dictate what you are doing. Take your chance, take your shots. Like, it's okay to make mistakes in the decisions that you make. I take pride in like making decisions that nobody tells me what to do. Like, I want to do it. I want to figure it out. And that builds my self-esteem up. The more that I make those decisions based on common sense, my instincts, my surroundings, whatever it is that's going on, instead of relying on other things. Like there's mom groups, you know, like on Facebook, that I used to be a part of, that I actually got out of because it used to annoy the shit out of me, that you would go into these mom groups and people would just ask these basic questions about parenting. And I'm thinking, but what did you do before social media? What did our ancestors do before that? They had to figure things out. They had to utilize their instincts and their guts and solve problems, or, you know, do trial and error to figure out what they need to do in the situation. but it's become too easy to go out there and just ask questions and get a response.
And I guess in some of that, it is innocent in the sense that we don't want to make mistakes, especially when it comes to parenting. Like, you don't want to screw up your kids, of course. But I learn way more from my mistakes than I ever do from success, because when I'm successful, I will always attribute that to luck or chance or, you know, some external thing. And I rarely attribute to like me making the right decision. But when I screw up, I learn so much.
Yeah. But I think we've made it easier for people to not make mistakes because they go and they ask questions that they know they can get a response.
But if you don't ever make mistakes, you'll never learn.
You'll never learn for yourself. And then you won't have that self-esteem either. Like, build up that confidence. Making mistakes actually builds up your confidence, because then you can shift it and you can solve your problems by doing something different.
Yeah. Like, the world needs more mentors. The world needs more adults. The world needs more people who have answers. And that comes from experience. Having made mistakes and
not people telling us what to do.
Right. And also another thing is, generally when people tell you what to do, most of the time people just do the opposite anyway.
Right, because you don't like the answer.
Yes.
Like, a lot of the times you're going to ask me, people will ask me questions and they're not going to like the answer to it at all. They're not going to like the answer to it because it's not what you want to hear.
I will sometimes give people answers. This person the other day on TikTok commented that their boyfriend had just been arrested for domestic violence because he had beaten the shit out of her. And he was high when he did it, and she wanted to take him back and wanted to know if that was a good idea. And I said, I don't normally do this, but leave him. Yes, leave him. Domestic violence is never something that you take lightly. If you are in danger, get the fuck away from that person as fast as you can, get to safety. And she responded back with like another like trauma-informed excuse about why he had done what he'd done. And I just asked her the simple question: if your best friend had just sent you this, what would you say to her? And she played along. She said, I would tell her that it didn't matter. He'll do it again, just like he has before, and to get away.
Yeah.
I was like, I hope that she did that.
Right.
I really do.
Yeah.
I hope that relationship's over.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, I'll answer questions like that as well. This is just
Guy's
more
a monster,
like
man. Get away from him.
basic questions that I feel that we need to make these decisions on our own. Because you're also going to get answers from people who may not really know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and you think about like social media in general, people oftentimes are making content that is like, what's their incentive? Their incentive is to go viral. They're making content that they know will get views. And so it's usually the extreme perspectives that get the most attention. It's not the most rational perspectives that get the most attention. And so think about a creator in a video that goes viral about attachment theory. It's usually a stupid perspective. The reason why it went viral is because it got so many people riled up. It validated people's emotions and gave them some semblance of control in their lives, not because it was the most common sense solution to a problem. And that goes true for most things on social media. Like, if something isn't working, just change it. Okay, right or wrong, change it, figure it out along the way on your own. Use your common sense, use your head, use your best judgment. You will make mistakes in this life, and that's okay. That is okay. If I've learned anything about humans in the last 30 plus years, it's that humans have a capacity of forgiveness that surpasses the pain that they have been endured. They want to forgive. They want to make peace. They want to have relationships. We want connection. If you screw up your kids a little bit, we will all do this. They will forgive you. I'm pretty sure of it, unless you go really far.
Yeah.
Even in addicted relationships, like, spouses want to forgive. So if you're someone who's like me, and like, there's some people who wallow in this self-pity, I can't believe I did what I did, I'll never recover. Dude, they want to forgive you. You're still married. Like, they would have left you by now if they didn't want this to work. There's still a chance. What are you gloating about? Or, you know, what are you wallowing about? Like, get on your ass and start to make changes and make things better and make things different. It'll be difficult. You'll make mistakes along the way, but like, that's the way out. The only way out is through. We try so hard to avoid any sort of pain, but through that pain is where we find.
It's where we learn.
Exactly.
God,
exactly.
pain is so important.
So, also, never trust anyone on social media that says I did my research in a comment section, because they haven't. They haven't. They've not. They watched a bunch of TikToks is what they did. They've not fucking researched anything. I'm convinced of it. There are very few experts on topics. We've never claimed to be experts on anything. We have ideas about our own experience, about what we've worked through and lived through. You can make your own determination if you think we're experts about it, but I will never sit here and say that there's no one smarter than me about it. If you ever hear someone who just says like, I did the research, ignore them. Block that person, get away from them. Dude, I've seen that so many times, and it's always about the craziest stuff. If you do the research like I did, then you would know. And it's like a lot of times it's conspiracy theory stuff, and it's outlandish.
Yeah.
I just don't trust anyone as a general rule who says that.
Goes
So,
against common sense.
a lot of times people cherry pick information that confirms their bias, confirmation bias. They will trust influencers because they got a lot of followers and a lot of views over someone who actually has an actual opinion. Like read a book or something. And don't let social media dictate your beliefs either. Don't do that. Like use your common sense. Use it. If that means you need to unfollow us, then unfollow us. Like
Right.
by all means, like, do it. Like if that's what's best for you, then do it by all means. But think critically and be okay with being wrong sometimes. I think that's kind of like gone past us. It's all right to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
It's perfectly fine. Perfectly
Yeah.
fine. All right. Where were we going after this?
That's it. Unless you had something else to say.
Do I?
I mean, you've been on a roll today.
I think in addiction recovery, common sense gets thrown out a lot. I think I've been on I wrote about harm reduction today. I think that harm reduction saves a lot of lives. Don't get me wrong. But I think that people have taken it too far, especially in certain social media circles. I've seen people who will argue and fight with people and justify lifelong drug use and alcohol use, like addictive use, as a valid choice. Like that is perfectly fine. That is what they need. And I think the biggest gaping hole in that entire movement is the effect it has on other people and the effect that it has on family members and spouses and children. And it's like, if that's what you need, then go live in the woods and don't hurt anybody else. But I think it's incredibly crazy that the first time you hear about it, it will make you go, wait, what? And then the more you read about it, you're like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. But then your gut will kind of be telling you like, this doesn't make sense. Like something about this seems off. And it's because it is. Because in theory, I think it is a good idea to meet people where they're at. I think it is a good idea to not necessarily push a narrative on someone when they're not ready for it. And I do believe that the only way for people to ever achieve recovery, if that's in the cards for them, is they have to survive long enough to do it. But I think that the mechanisms for which we use to get people there are taken advantage of, and I don't think they're as effective as people think. I just don't. I've seen this. I've listened. I've read the studies. I've heard the experts on this, and I still think it's kind of bullshit. I mean, you look at recovery rates just in general, right? Like over time, they're pretty bleak. I don't think that harm reduction is going to be the one that skyrockets it to 95%. I just don't.
No,
I don't.
I don't either.
I think for a lot of families, that's a way that you can justify someone's drug use and continued harm to other people around them.
Yeah.
I know it's got a place, and if you've been helped by it, it's wonderful, great. The medication-assisted treatment, same thing. I think it's great in conjunction with other things, but I don't know. I think that people overcomplicate the absolute shit out of it.
Oh, I
think
agree.
the best way for most people is to face their problems, whatever they might be. We were designed to be sober. We showed up like this,
Yeah.
If you learn how to process your problems this way, then you're never going to have to worry about much of anything. If you can only process your problems with the substance, then you're relying on that substance in order to deal with life in general. I think that we can all agree that that's not a good thing. It's just not a good thing,
Yeah.
right? I don't know. I get irritated. People have attacked me on that too.
But you found that it's much easier to just abstain from it than it is to manage it.
Dude, I tried to manage it forever, and
Right.
you go through periods of time where you can do it and you're good.
Yeah.
And then you'll find yourself like falling back off, and then it's like this. Okay, I got to get back
It's
on
a
track.
cycle
And
that
it's just,
progresses.
It takes a lot more mental bandwidth to manage something than it does to just abstain from something.
not do it,
In
yeah.
my experience, in my book.
Right.
And it's just, I don't know, man. Like if it's screwing up your life, stop doing it.
Could
I
you do
think.
that with sugar?
Yeah, if I had to, for sure. But,
I don't think so.
but sugar's not something I'm struggling to manage right now.
I know that. I'm just asking.
But if it
in
was,
general.
yeah. But like, yeah, if it's screwing up your life, like, don't do it. I think that's the most common sense answer I could give somebody. If it's screwing up your life, don't do it.
Yeah.
But I've been attacked by more people than I can count that say like it's not selfish because people are just trying to
survive.
Like it's a survival mechanism for them. Like dude, you're preaching to the choir. I know, but it doesn't mean
That doesn't mean it's okay.
the definition of selfish is it's lack of consideration for other people. I didn't say that you intended to hurt other people, but
Right.
it still hurts other people. Like intent doesn't erase impact, right? But it affects other people. And I think that what we've done in that area of recovery, or I guess the way of looking at it, that perspective is we've decided that the addicted person is more important than everyone else.
Yeah.
That's what we've done. We've decided that they are more important than everyone else in their orbit. And it's about them. Forget everyone else. It's about them. And for the loved ones, we're just going to convince them that this is the best way. We're just going to teach them how to tolerate it better. We're going to teach them how to
manage it, how to cope, and how
and
to change their behavior so that they can influence the others or whatnot, which may or may not work.
Man, do whatever you got to do to get there. I hope you get there. I think about families and family systems and children when I hear stories about this. And I don't know if I've actually heard from someone who's been through it with like children in a family. Oftentimes it's like single people, or it's parents talking about it from their child who's out there using. But I've never, like, oftentimes the people that talk about it the most, like, I know they don't have children. I know that they don't have, because their opinions that they would change if they had children and they suscepted in that environment. They would change drastically. Yeah. Like if you, man, no, you wouldn't do this. You would not answer that question the same way if there was a kid around watching this stuff. Right. Just let him use heroin. It's okay. Like, no, it's not. It's not okay. It's not okay. That is common sense. Not okay. Yeah. It's just not. Yep. And that shouldn't be crazy to say. I shouldn't get canceled for that, but I probably will. Yeah. So be it.
Whatever.
So fucking be it, right? All right.
That's it.
What else do we have? Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope people use common sense more. I really
just get
do.
back to the basics. We try to simplify these things so that you can be validated and then just get back to the basics and not make it so complicated.
Yeah, we always said like we wanted to validate people first and foremost. Like, you're not crazy for feeling the way you feel.
No.
You're not crazy. Like,
and you're not crazy for wanting to know more. Like, I understand why people do it, but we're just here to say that you don't have to go through all of that. Just try to listen to yourself, listen to your common sense.
Yeah, I think what we're saying is that the solution to the problem isn't in more understanding. It's in action.
Yeah,
it's through action. And that goes for a spouse, or it goes for someone in a tough relationship, a spouse of an alcoholic or an addict or somebody, and then someone in a tough relationship, someone who's struggling in their career. Like, take action. More understanding oftentimes is just a form of avoidance. Is we try to control all of the variables to eliminate as much risk as possible so that we can act with confidence that's not going to give us a result that we don't want, which is another long-winded way of saying that you're trying to control the situation, rather than suscepting yourself to the beauty of life, which is ups and downs. And sometimes it's, wins and losses, whatever it might be, but you're going to learn more if you just take action and figure it out.
Yeah. And denying the reality of it is also a form of avoidance.
Yes, it is. 100% it is. Yeah. You can reframing it and sugarcoating it. And yeah, you're right. It is. Absolutely. Use your common sense, y'all. That's all we've got this week. I hope that you do. I hope that you're able to take something from this. I hope that, I wasn't trying to offend anybody. I promise you that. But I believe in what we talked about for the most part, which doesn't mean I won't reserve the right to change my mind as I learn more about life and people. And
this is where we are right now, though.
This is where I'm at today. I think that there's so much of what we get asked about and discussed about that is just common sense. And it's like, if you just use your common sense, you'd be further along a lot sooner than if you tried to understand something as if it were like stochastic calculus, when it's really not. It's not nearly as complex as you think it is. If you're being treated poorly, you probably don't need to be treated poorly anymore. You should probably not be treated poorly. And so for whatever that means for you, Yeah.
Yeah. That's up to you to take action, not to try to change the other person that's treating you poorly.
Yeah. If you're struggling to get sober, there's a million ways to tackle this thing. I suggest that you pick one and start working on it like yesterday. And rather than spending all this time trying to understand the why and being super new age about it, like, do I think that the old paths of recovery are perfect? Absolutely effing not. Do I think they're better than doing nothing? Yes, I do.
For sure.
I think they're better than doing nothing. Find what works for you and run with it. And if it doesn't work for you, pick something else and run with it. If that doesn't work, pick something else and run with it.
Just keep doing something.
Pick something and do something. And then
take action. Life
will get better for everyone. I promise you that. And you will be more empowered having made a decision on your own.
Ooh, yes.
I can assure you of that. All right. That's all we've got this week. Thanks for joining us. Till next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Paige.
And we'll see you.